Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down to crack open a new case study, we're looking at something, well, something grounded.
Right. Corporate turnarounds, historical battles.
Exactly. The psychology of a marketing campaign, maybe?
Yeah.
But the stack of documents we have in front of us today, I honestly feel like it shouldn't legally exist.
It definitely defies the usual filing system. It was one of those rare cases where you have this cold, hard, bureaucratic espionage crashing headfirst into high-concept science fiction.
It is a mess, but it is a beautiful mess. We are talking about interdimensional travel, biological anomalies that just turned the theory of evolution completely upside down, and a geopolitical strategy that involves cavemen.
That is the short version, yes. We're looking at the file known as the Liberator of Jedd mission. And standing right in the center of this whole storm, is a man named Richard Blade.
Richard Blade. Just the name alone. It tells you everything you need to know about the era this comes from. It sounds like he was engineered in a lab to be the ultimate hero.
In a way, he was, or at least he was, re-engineered by the organization he works for. Blade is a special agent for MI6A.
Okay.
Now, for those not familiar with the lore here, MI6A is this fictional, top-secret branch of British intelligence. And Blade isn't just a spy. The file describes him as the physical prime specimen.
So he's the guy you call when James Bond is too busy playing Baccarat.
Pretty much. But more importantly, he holds the title of the Traveler.
Right, because this isn't just about spying on the Russians or, toppling dictators. This is about Project DX. And I have to say, the setup for this project is just pure vintage atmosphere. We aren't in some sterile lab at MIT.
No.
We aren't at the Pentagon. We're in the Tower of London.
Which is just such a brilliant setting. I mean, deep beneath the medieval stones, right under the feet of tourists looking at the crown jewels, there's this massive mainframe computer. And this computer, run by a man named Lord Leighton, has the capability to punch a hole through reality and send a human agent into Dimension X.
Let's unpack the team dynamics here for a second, because it really sets the tone for the whole mission. You have Blade, who is the muscle and the courage.
Right.
Then you have Lord Leighton in the chair.
And Lord Leighton he's a fascinating character study in contradictions. He's described as having this terrifying, galaxy brain intellect, but physically, he's wrecked.
Right.
He's a hunchback, a polio survivor. He can barely move his own body, but his mind is it's traversing dimensions.
You get the sense he views Blade not as a colleague, but almost as his favorite lab rat.
Oh, absolutely. He's living vicariously through Blade's physicality.
And then there's the third wheel of this operation, simply known as Jay.
The spy master. Jay is the anchor to reality.
Okay.
So while Leighton is obsessing over the physics of the multiverse, Jay is the one worrying about the budget. He's the pragmatist. He has to answer to the prime minister. He's the one calculating the return on investment for sending a man into a void.
So the usual routine is Blade goes into the machine, scouts a dimension, maybe gets into a fistfight, comes back.
Yep.
But this specific deep dive, it starts with a massive failure. This is what the files call the Ogar incident.
This is the catalyst for everything that follows. Lord Leighton, in a moment of, scientific hubris, decides to try a new experiment. He wants to send Blade back to a specific dimension he's visited before, a place called Alb.
He thinks he's mastered the coordinates.
He thinks he has it all figured out, but the computer has other ideas.
It goes wrong.
Violently wrong. The machine malfunctions catastrophically. The descriptions in the source text they're really intense. Smoke filling the bunker, lightning arsing off the consoles.
Wow.
The smell of ozone and burning insulation. But instead of Blade vanishing into the unknown spits something out at them.
An anomaly.
A creature is pulled from Dimension X right into the computer room in London.
And just to be clear, this is not a little green man with a ray gun.
Oh, far from it.
Yeah.
This is Ogar. He is described so vividly as a beast man. Lord Leighton, observing him, he immediately identifies him as an Australopithecine type.
Basically, an early human ancestor from, 600,000 years ago?
Exactly. So we have a caveman in the mainframe room.
That's insane.
It is. He's short, incredibly dense muscle covered in hair. And the notes specifically mention the smell of rancid animal musk that just fills the sterile room instantly.
It's a clash of eras.
Completely. You have the most advanced technology in the world facing off against literally the dawn of man.
And Ogar arrives fighting.
Immediately. I mean, he's terrified. He's been ripped from his world into this room full of flashing lights and what he must think are demons in lab coats.
Right.
He attacks with a stone axe. Blade has to physically subdue him. And this is our first clue about the physical stakes. Ogar has the strength of a chimpanzee. Blade, who's supposed to be superhuman, he barely manages to pin him down.
So now they have a live caveman in the basement of the Tower of London. I'm guessing Leighton is ecstatic, right? This is the scientific discovery of the century.
He's over the moon. He wants to study him, dissect the biology, understand the dimension he came from. But
He's just terrified.
Jay is terrified. He's thinking about the political fallout. You can't just hide a prehistoric man in the basement forever. The press, the government, it's a nightmare.
But then the objective shifts. Yeah. And this is where the story takes a turn that really defines the whole Cold War mentality of the organization.
Exactly. They don't just want to study him.
They want to use him.
Precisely. Jay sees an economic opportunity. The reasoning is cold, but it's logical. If Ogar comes from a prehistoric dimension, a world that is essentially Earth from 500,000 years ago, then it's likely untouched.
Untouched meaning resources.
Uranium, gold, oil, diamonds, things that have been mined out of our world for centuries.
Ah.
So the Prime Minister and Jay, they cook up a new plan. Despite the malfunction, despite the risk that nearly killed them all, they order Blade to escort Ogar back to his home dimension.
So Ogar is going to be the guide.
That's the theory. Blade's mission is to survive, survey the land, and report back on the economic viability of this new world. He is, for all intents and purposes, a prospector with a license to kill.
Prospector makes it sound so innocent. He's basically the vanguard of an interdimensional invasion force.
If the resources are there, absolutely. It's colonization across reality.
Talk about high stakes. Okay, so before they send him back, there's this fascinating preparation phase. They don't just shove him in the machine immediately. They try to acclimate Ogar, this caveman simulation. It stood out to me as really bizarre.
It is bizarre, but it shows Leighton's obsessive attention to detail. He literally builds a fake cave in the tower basement.
You're kidding.
No. He controls the temperature to match the humidity of the dimension. He pumps in the sounds of a prehistoric night roars, hisses, insect noises, all to make Ogar feel at home.
And Blade has to live in there with him.
To build rapport. And this is crucial for understanding Blade's character, his adaptability. He realizes he can't sit there and try to teach Ogar English or, use logic. To communicate with a creature like Ogar, Blade has to shed his civilized skin.
He has to become a primal alpha.
That's it. He has to.
There's a specific detail in the notes about this meat ritual.
Yes. Blade establishes dominance not by fighting Ogar again, which is risky, but by controlling the food supply. He uses raw meat.
Clever.
He feeds Ogar. He uses Ogar's own grunts and body language. He essentially positions himself as a kind of god figure, the provider of sustenance.
That is manipulative and brilliant.
And by the time they're ready to leave, Ogar is completely subservient to Blade. He sees Blade as the pack leader. Blade has basically hacked the social hierarchy of a prehistoric species.
Which makes what happens next even more tragic.
It does. They wire them up together, Blade and Ogar, to make sure they arrive at the same destination. The transport itself is described as just agony. Blade feels like he's being scooped out, burned hollow by a mauve wind.
That phrase, mauve wind, is so evocative. It's not just tech. It sounds almost mystical or hallucinogenic.
It suggests a total disorientation of the senses. It's not just moving from point A to point B. It's being dismantled and reassembled. And when Blade wakes up, the first thing he realizes is he is in an utterly hostile environment. He's in a swamp. There's giant saw-toothed grass towering over him. And Ogar is there. But there's a massive problem.
The amnesia twist.
The transport wiped Ogar's memory. Leighton's theory, which he conveniently discovers way too late, is that the brain of an Australopithecine just wasn't complex enough to handle the trauma of the dimension jump.
The synaptic connections just got scrambled.
Exactly.
So all that work in the cave, the meat ritual, the bonding.
Gone. Vaporized. Blade wakes up next to a confused, violent beast man who doesn't know him from Adam.
That is a nightmare scenario. You are in an alien world, and your only ally suddenly looks at you like you're lunch.
Exactly. Blade has to physically subdue Ogar all over again just to stop Ogar from bashing his head in with a rock. He reestablishes the hierarchy through brute force, but that connection, that trust, it's shattered. Ogar is just a frightened animal now.
And their journey through this grass jungle, it gets dark very, very quickly. I mean, they run into some trouble with quicksand, and Ogar's reaction is, well, it's telling.
It's a moment that really defines the ethics of this dimension. Blade steps into quicksand, he's sinking,
Right.
he calls out for help, and Ogar starts gathering stones.
I help him, like to build a path or something.
No, to kill him.
Wow.
It's just brutal pragmatism. In Ogar's world, if something is trapped, it's easier to kill it than save it. Or maybe he just saw an opportunity to take up the alpha.
What happens?
Blade manages to pull himself out by sheer strength, which terrifies Ogar, but it sets the tone. This is a merciless world. Empathy is a weakness here.
But Ogar doesn't last much longer. And this scene, it really shocked me with how sudden it was.
It just cements the danger of Dimension X. They're moving through the grass, and suddenly Ogar is just snatched.
Snatched by what?
By a predator that defies simple classification. The text describes it as a 30-foot hybrid part reptile, part anteater.
What?
It has a sticky tongue, like a chameleon. It shoots that tongue out, grabs Ogar, pulls him into this hinged maw, and just swallows him whole.
Just like that. The mission guide is gone.
Just like that. No fight, no dramatic speech, just the food chain in brutal action.
So Blade is now completely alone.
Completely alone. He's in a hostile swamp, surrounded by predators that treat an ape-man like a popcorn snack, and he has absolutely no idea where civilization, if it even exists, might be.
This brings us to a really interesting concept that we need to unpack. As Blade continues, he starts to notice a pattern in the geography. It's not just random.
Right, yeah. We can call this the microcosm of evolution. Blade observes that the terrain is constantly rising. He starts in the swamp, the lowest point, which corresponds to the prehistoric era. Dinosaurs, giant reptiles, basic mammals like Ogar.
And as he climbs...
As the altitude rises, the species become more advanced. It's like climbing a physical ladder of time. He moves from the swamp to a plain, then to a forest, and finally to mountains. And with every 1,000 feet of elevation, the local inhabitants jump forward in evolutionary development.
So let's talk about the next rung on that ladder. He leaves the swamp and enters the territory of the lake people.
Yeah, he encounters a settlement on a lake huts built on stilts, to stay away from the water predators. These beings are pithecanthropus types. Think of them as the missing link.
So more advanced than Ogar.
Much more advanced. They have fire, they have basic tools, but here is the shocking detail Blade notices.
The slavery dynamic.
Exactly. Usually, in fiction or in history, we see the more advanced species dominating the primitive ones. Here, it's inverted. The ape men are the masters.
And their slaves.
Their slaves are true men Homo sapiens types, people who look just like Blade.
That is horrifying. Seeing your own species being whipped by essentially gorillas.
It's a brutal inversion, and
Wow.
Blade watches them working in the fields, and the brutality is systemic. He sees these scarecrows, right? But when he looks closer, he realizes they aren't made of straw.
Oh no.
They're dead slaves tied to posts.
That creates such a visceral image of cruelty. It
Yeah.
establishes that this isn't a noble savage scenario. This is a nightmare world.
And it forces you and Blade to question what civilization even means in this context. These ape men have a society, they have agriculture, but its entire foundation is just extreme cruelty.
It's in this nightmare that Blade spots his opportunity. He witnesses an escape attempt.
Right. A female slave makes a run for it, and she heads for the forest, which seems to be taboo for the ape men.
They're afraid of it.
They fear the forest, but Blade, of course, isn't. He tracks her. He sets a snare again, using his survival skills, not his tech, and he catches her.
And this is Uma. And Uma is fascinating because she isn't just a damsel in distress, she's a Jedd.
Right. She belongs to the mountain people, the highest rung of this evolutionary ladder. She'd been captured and enslaved by this lower species. She's young, she's completely naked, which she explains is practical for the forest, clothes are for the city, and she is initially very hostile.
So Blade has to play the MasterCard again.
He does. It's a recurring theme. In a world of brute force, Blade has to assert dominance to gain trust. He calls himself Blade Master. But eventually that dynamic shifts. They form a bond, it becomes romantic, sexual even, but it's all rooted in mutual survival. She realizes he is strong enough to get her home.
And she gives him insight into her culture, right? The Jedd mythology. And this is some weird stuff.
This is fascinating anthropology. She tells him the story of the Ak,
The Ak.
a giant bird. The creation myth goes that in the beginning, the Ak was lonely. A smaller bird joined it, but then died. In grief, or maybe as part of some ritual, the auk ate the small bird, which represented the elements of fire, earth, and air.
Okay.
The auk then got sick and vomited up the egg of the world.
That is certainly a vivid creation story.
It is, isn't it? But think about what that says about their psychology. Most creation myths are about light, or divine words, or molding clay. This is a myth about consumption, sickness, and vomit. The Jedds believe they are living on this egg.
It suggests a world born of trauma.
Exactly. It fits the violence Blade sees everywhere. They're a fatalistic people because they believe their very existence is a byproduct of a cosmic illness.
So Blade and Uma are moving through the forest. They're heading for the mountains, Her-Ham. But this forest isn't a walk in the park. This is where the survivalist aspect of the deep dive really kicks into high gear.
Not at all. Remember, Blade is stripped of all his high-tech gear. He's naked, using a stone knife and a club, and the environment is actively trying to consume him. The leech incident is a prime example.
Oh, I made a note of this. It sounded horrific.
He falls asleep and he wakes up realizing that the ground is moving. He is covered, literally covered head to toe in hundreds of giant earth leeches.
Oh, God.
They aren't just latching on, they're draining him dry.
And you can't just pull a leech off, right? The head stays in.
Exactly. If he pulls them, he risks infection and death. He has to use fire. He spends the night burning them off his own skin with a torch.
That is the stuff of nightmares. But it shows his resilience. He doesn't panic. He just problem solves through the pain.
He adapts. He starts eating giant hares and mountain sheep to regain his strength. He reverts to a completely primal state. But the real test comes when they reach the plains just before the mountains.
The Api.
The Api. Now, this is where the evolutionary ladder gets really interesting. We've seen the brute Ogar and the cruel ape-men. The Api are something else entirely. They're described as 8-foot-tall gorilla-baboon hybrids.
But they aren't wild animals.
No! That's the terrifying part. They wear armor, they carry swords, they exhibit strict military discipline. They're mercenaries who guard the borders of the Jedd territory.
So you have a beast that looks like a monster but thinks like a soldier.
Precisely. Blade and Uma run right into a patrol led by an Api named Porrex. And Blade realizes immediately, I cannot outmuscle this thing. Porrex weighs 600 pounds.
600.
600 pounds. Blade is a big man, maybe 220, but against 600 pounds of angry primate. He loses that fight every single time.
So how does he fight a 600-pound gorilla swordsman?
Psychology and agility. The duel is a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. Blade dances around him, tiring him out. But when it comes time to kill, Blade has to be ruthless. He gets inside Porrex's guard and he gouges his eyes out.
Ouch.
It blinds the beast, causes panic. Then Blade impales him with his own sword. It's brutal, but it's necessary. But then he has a new problem. He's killed the leader, but there are 9 other Api soldiers standing there watching.
This is my favorite part of the story, the Great Bluff. Because he can't fight 9 of them?
It is brilliant. Blade knows he's dead if they charge, so he uses politics. He claims leadership by right of combat, which is apparently a universal law in this place. But he knows that's not enough. He needs to offer them something.
A campaign promise.
Exactly. He looks at them and he realizes what the Api lack. They're an all-male society of mercenaries living on the plains.
They like women.
They like women. So Blade stands there, probably holding the severed head of their captain, and promises, if you let me pass, I will ensure women for all.
He negotiates with their libido.
He manipulates their scarcity mindset. He promises that if he reaches the Jedd capital, he will change the social order to benefit them. And here is the kicker. They vote.
They vote.
They actually cast votes with colored stones. It shows this level of democratic process in these beasts that is just totally unexpected. It's a bizarre mix of savagery and civilization.
Yeah, they let him pass.
They do. Blade talks his way out of a massacre.
So they clear the Api checkpoint. Now they have to cross the mountains to get to Jeddia.
And this ascent is the physical climax of the journey. The terrain is freezing. They get caught in a blizzard. And here we see the sheer ruthlessness of survival again. Uma is freezing to death.
Right.
Blade kills a woolly mountain beast, something like a sheep. He guts it and he stuffs Uma inside the warm carcass.
The old Han Solo maneuver.
A classic survival tactic, though this source material actually predates Star Wars. He wraps himself in the entrails. It's disgusting, it's bloody, but it keeps them alive. It just emphasizes that in Dimension X, there is no room for squeamishness. You do what you must to survive the night.
They finally descend into the Valley of the Jedds. And you expect this to be the promised land, right? Civilization, the top of the ladder. But it's not exactly paradise.
No, far from it. As they descend, the atmosphere changes. The air is thick with this greasy smoke. It smells like burning meat. And they soon realize why. The valley is suffering from a plague. They call it the Yellow Death.
And this isn't just a flu. The symptoms are disturbing.
Victims turn yellow jaundice, but the hallmark symptom is manic laughter. They die laughing.
Wise.
Yeah, it adds this grotesque auditory horror to the city. Can you imagine walking through a city where everyone is dying, but it sounds like a comedy club?
That is deeply unsettling. And the smoke.
That's from the corpse burners. Men in yellow uniforms burning bodies in mass graves because they can't bury them fast enough. The civilization is rotting from the inside out.
So Blade has walked into a city on the absolute brink of collapse.
It's a society in terminal decline. Blade and Uma take refuge with her relatives, including a drunkard named Mok. And Blade, being the spy that he is, uses Mok to gather intelligence. He gets him drunk and learns the political lay of the land.
And the political situation is just as sick as the population.
Oh, yeah. It's a power vacuum waiting to happen. The Empress, the Jeddak, she's dying. She's lying in a pavilion on a lake. And there's this creepy detail. Musicians play a specific tune 24 hours a day.
Why?
Because if the music stops, she knows she is alone and that her guards have abandoned her. So they have to play until she takes her very last breath.
That is haunting.
Meanwhile, the sharks are circling. The main rival for power is Nizra, known as the Wise One.
Describe Nizra. Because physically, he fits that whole future evolution theme perfectly.
He really does. If Ogar was the past all body, no brain Nizra is the distorted future. He is macrocephalic, a giant head pulsating with veins on this tiny, frail body. He's pure intellect, zero physicality. He controls the Empress and plans to rule through a puppet, the child Princess Migu.
So Blade sees the board. He knows he has to make a move before the Empress dies.
He realizes that if Nizra takes power, an outsider like Blade, especially one who just promised women to the mercenary army, will be eliminated. He has to strike first. And this leads to the coup segment.
Blade goes into infiltration mode, and his disguise is just genius.
He kills a corpse burner and steals his yellow uniform. It's the perfect cover because everyone is terrified of the plague. No one wants to get near a corpse burner. It's a suit of invisibility born of fear.
So he just walks right into the city, right up to the lake pavilion.
He stalks Nizra to his home. He kills the guards, quietly switching from his stone knife to a stolen iron sword. He smears blood on his face to look terrifying. He enters the bedroom of the most powerful man in Jedd.
This is the showdown. Brute strength, Blade, versus the giant brain, Nizra. Blade wakes him up, covered in blood, sword in hand. You expect Nizra to scream.
But he doesn't, and this is what makes Nizra such a compelling antagonist. He just shows curiosity. Yeah. He looks at this blood-soaked giant, and he realizes, you are alien. He's an intellectual snob. He's more interested in what Blade is than in the fact that Blade might kill him.
And Blade uses that. He doesn't just kill him. He proposes a partnership.
It's the ultimate pragmatic deal, Blade says, essentially. I have the Force, I have the alien knowledge, you have the political legitimacy. Together, we run this place.
The brain and the muscle?
Exactly. Blade proposes a piece of theater. Nizra is to go to the dying Empress and tell her he had a vision that a stranger Blade has been sent to save the Jedds.
It's the great bluff from the Appy encounter, but just scaled up to an imperial level.
Exactly. Blade understands that power is just a story you tell people. If the Empress blesses him, the people will follow. And Nizra agrees. He sees the logic. Why fight this unstoppable force when you can use it?
So, in a matter of days, Blade has gone from a naked castaway in a swamp, nearly eaten by an anteater, to the potential ruler of an entire nation.
It's an incredible trajectory, and it ends with the agreement struck. Blade sits at the bedside of this giant-headed mutant, plotting the future of an alien world while the plague just burns outside.
So, let's zoom out. What does this all mean? We've walked through the narrative, but what are the takeaways here?
Well, I think there are two main layers to digest. First, there's the evolutionary commentary. Lord Leighton's theory about this dimension being a microcosm of evolution is just fascinating. Blade essentially climbs up the phylogenetic tree.
Right.
He starts with the beast, Ogar, moves to the primitive tool users, the ape men, then the organized military society, the AP, and finally the decadent intellectual civilization of the Jedds.
And in each stage, the civilized ones are often crueler than the beasts.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Ogar was violent, but simple. The ape men were slavers. The Jedds are plagued by intrigue and are literally burning their own dead in the streets. It challenges the whole idea that progress means moral improvement.
The higher Blade climbs, the more twisted the morality becomes.
It really does. And then there's the cost of the mission. We have to talk about the morality of what Blade actually does.
It's highly ambiguous.
It is. Blade survives, yes. But look at the trail of bodies. He kills guards who are just doing their jobs. He manipulates Uma. He promises women to the Appy, which is essentially trading human trafficking for safe passage.
It's ruthless.
It is. And it reflects the Cold War mentality of the source material. The mission comes first. Ethics are a luxury. Blade is a hero because he wins, not because he's a saint. He conquers the environment, but he also conquers the people.
And finally, there's the irony of Lord Leighton.
That's the kicker for me. In the intro, Leighton gives the speech. He says, in a world run by computers, there would be no wars. He believes logic brings peace.
Yet, he uses a supercomputer to send a man to war.
To steal resources. He uses the pinnacle of logic to fuel the most primal human drive, conquest and greed. It completely undercuts his own philosophy. It suggests that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, the human impulse, it stays the same.
It's a fascinating contradiction. You have a man preaching peace while building a machine for interdimensional plunder.
And Blade is the instrument of that contradiction. He is the liberator of Jedd. But you have to ask, who is he liberating it for? For the Jedds? Or for the British Treasury back home?
That is the question. And as we leave Blade there, plotting with Nizra, you have to wonder what liberation is going to look like for the people of that valley.
If history is any guide, it's going to look a lot like a change of management with the same old brutality underneath.
A cheerful thought to end on, but a fascinating deep dive into the world of Richard Blade. From swamps to palaces, it's a wild ride.
Indeed. It reminds us that no matter the dimension, the struggle for power remains the one constant.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next jump.
Stay curious.